Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
Well, we got a little thing from Chuan Tzu this morning. How does the true man of Tao walk through walls without obstruction and stand in fire without being burned? Not because of cunning or daring, not because he has learned, but because he has unlearned. His nature sinks to its roots in the one. His vitality, his power, hide in secret Tao. When he is all one, there is no flaw in him by which a wedge can enter. So a drunken man who falls out of a wagon is bruised but not destroyed. His bones are like the bones of other men, but his fall is different. His spirit is entire. He is not aware of getting into a wagon or falling out of one. Life and death are nothing to him. He knows no alarm. He meets obstacles without thought, without care, and takes them without knowing they are there. If there is such serenity in wine, how much more in Tao? Yeah. The wise man is hidden in Tao, and nothing can touch him. Did you know you have a wise man hidden in you? A true man of no rank. Now, we very often, and sometimes it's very necessary, we have our cleverness and we have our strategies of if I do this, then they will do that. And if I say this, they will say that. And we plan. If we do, then that will happen. And so we plan this and that, and we protect this and that. And we're clever. Cleverness of the mind. We're clever. We are not living like innocent little children. We are clever. Do you bring that with you when you come out here? I hear people say I will sit 6 months and I'll make it, planning their strategy, what they're going to do after they make it. Yeah. But in this religious realm, which is, what I talk about, cunningness doesn't help. With whom are you being cunning? Against whom are you planning your strategies? Is it with nature? Not usually. Somehow nature is set aside from us in our heads. Is our strategy with the Tao? With the roots? Well, they're downstairs. Roots, huh? Yeah. With God? You can't do that either. Whom do you think you are deceiving? Do you think you're deceiving the source from which you came and to which you will eventually return? I mean, if you think this, then of course you have delusions. It's like a little wave trying to outsmart the ocean, or a leaf having all kinds of strategies against a tree, or a cloud, trying to be clever against the sky. With whom are you playing? Mm. Once we understand what we're doing, I mean, people said for years, and don't realize how deceiving they are, how deluded the minds are, huh? Once we understanding ourselves, you see, this is of utmost importance. Once we understand, we accept ourselves, and there is no need for cunning. There's just no other way. You just accept. Hmm? Why fight against things as they are in here? Hmm? To penetrate into oneself, to find out whence, whither, and why. Yeah. If one can just start out with this very simple fact, I don't know. Just accept it. I don't know. You don't have to be clever about that. I just don't know. I have been told many things, but honest and truly, comes to the rock bottom. I don't know. Comes to the rock bottom. What do you know? Hmm? Just to accept I don't know, you know. Then there is no obstacle to your own trueness. Then we can walk through life, like a very small child who has his hand in his father's, they walk along, and he has his trust. He accepts, and he trusts because he does accept. And now all peoples everywhere are born with a degree of intelligence. Animals and birds have intelligence, degree of intelligence. People, some birds and dogs and cats are smarter than some people. True. Animals, and birds, they have an instinctive intelligence, and it's pretty smart. Yeah. Then we have the use of the brain, which is also called intelligence. So we use this term intelligence on both sides of the fence, as it were. There is a phenomenal intelligence and there is a noumenal intelligence. And I hear people say every once in a while, well, so-and-so's not very smart, that is book smart. He's not very smart, but he has intelligence. And then there are people who are very book smart and don't have much intelligence. Yeah. But whatever degree of intelligence we have, we come by it quite naturally. We're born with it. You didn't do anything about it. And this intelligence is not cunning. There are those who can make great plans in some kind of development. They're developing something and they make all these plans. Or we have generals making plans for war and like a big chess game, planning what they're doing all the time. And we say, how smart, how intelligent. That's one kind, Jump the fence. The other aspect, the wisdom with which we're born. See, use it, to look into things as they are. Amongst other things you will see that nature is not an enemy. You will see that the totality, the wholeness of life has given you existence. Mm-hmm. The wholeness of life has given you existence. You have not left that wholeness. You exist in this totality. The problem is you don't see it. What you see out of this totality is that I stand out. I exist. I stand out. This intelligence with which we're born, not the book smart, the intelligence with which we're born, it gives you trust, if you look at it. It gives you a trust in yourself. You look inside of yourself and there's something in here. You don't know maybe don't know the name of it, but you do trust, and you do trust it. To this extent, you trust yourself, that you have something here that you can trust. So, look at it so that it'll grow, so that you can bring it forth, so that you can rely on it even more. You do trust. If you didn't trust, you would never get out of bed in the morning. And if you didn't trust, you would never fall asleep at night. And there are some people who have this problem. They can't go to sleep at night because they don't know what's going to happen to them during the night. And by golly, they might not be there in the morning. And I have talked to a few that have really fought with this. It's a horrible problem. Gee, just to lie back and go to sleep is a marvelous thing. It's wonderful. Sure. You do have an innate trust. Just accept it. Trust it. Yeah. In Japan, they have the art of fencing and swordsmanship, the martial arts. And these martial arts were the absorbing occupations of the governing classes in the early Kamakura era, the samurai. And these samurai, when the great masters began to come over from China to teach, these samurai were very eager to learn. They were very eager to be disciplined. They were soldiers, and naturally they weren't very scholarly. They didn't spend their time reading books. They spent their time learning how to defend themselves. And what they wanted to know out of this teaching that was coming from China was how not to be timid when they were facing death. How not to be timid. They constantly faced this, even in their practice, they faced death. And it was a practical problem for them, and one which this Chan Buddhism, which was coming over, was ready to grapple with. These Chinese men could understand it, because the whole matter dealt with facts of life and not just with concepts. So a samurai was given a koan about life and death. And if he came in to see the teacher and he said something, out of his head about this koan, he would be chased out of the room with a stick. And the teacher saying, there is no life and death in this place. Or if a man had a problem, that he was afraid to face whatever it was, and he would go into this teacher and he would say, I have to go through the most critical event of my entire life. What shall I do? And this master would roar at him, go straight ahead. No looking backward. This is acceptance. To go straight ahead. No looking backward. These were the warrior pupils of Kamakura. And they didn't understand Chinese. So they were trained in what was called on the spot or on the instant Zen. The Chinese couldn't speak Japanese, and the Japanese couldn't speak Chinese, but they could read each other's writings. The ideographs were, the same. They just pronounced them differently. Now, in an old record, there is a passage describing an interview. And in it comes the phrase, makama'a-san, makama'a-san, niyasu kuriji fuya. And there was evidently a scribe. Anyway, somebody was there writing it down, and he wrote it down phonetically. So the Japanese scholar could read that, you know. And he read it as Makamozu, Jizan Gin, Rai, Butsu, Ya. No delusive thoughts. No delusive thoughts. Surely you are yourself from the very beginning, Buddha. No delusive thoughts. And then there came about in that time the koan for the women. By women. They had women teachers out of the samurai class. And these samurai women were very famous for their strength of character and for their moral strictness. They must have been something else again, huh? Yeah. And these women teachers, they developed koan of their own. There's a whole slew of them, but for example, there was a nun named Shido, and she said, if the mind does not rest on anything, there is no clouding, and talk of polishing is but a fancy. A mirror which does not cloud and needs no polishing, set it before me now. Yeah. And then there was the Princess Yodo, and she said, heart unclouded, heart clouded, rising or falling, it is still the same body. And Ryodo, the nun Ryodo, if one asks, where the reflections in the pure mirror go when they vanish, do you declare their hiding place? Not so shabby. Not so shabby, these women. Huh? I wonder what happened to the thing in the meanwhile, that there was only a few here and there. Hardly any. Now, in this Kamakura Zen, where it came from Buddhism and settled there and then spread, scriptural Zen not being applicable. The fine points of things as they were discussed in China, and they discussed fine points, these Chinese scholars and masters, they couldn't be discussed here because of language barrier. And so in bringing this over to Japan, many felt that the cultural learning would vanish. And yet it seems that by their on-the-spot Zen, the way they handled it, the cultural learning was preserved. It's strange, huh? So instead of the scriptural Zen, they use this on-the-instant Zen, called Shikan Zen. Or they used the Zen adapted to the pupil, and not just going down by rote. Zen adapted to the pupil, Kian Zen. So there's 3 kinds of Zen. Scriptural Zen, on-the-spot Zen, adapted to the pupil Zen. Right? Now, they taught acceptance, of course. Yeah. How do you accept a warrior that is in front of you, poised to kill you? How do you accept? You've got to trust something now to see you through this situation, huh? Yeah. How can you accept when the sword is raised against you? Accept. How can you accept the circumstances of your life? You accept and go through. No looking back. You accept. Once there was a great sword master, and at the time of this story, he was 80. And traditionally, the disciple who could defeat him would succeed him. This is the tradition all the way through Zen, whichever thing you're in it. Archery, swordsmanship, flower arranging, tea ceremony, meditation. To defeat the master, succeed him. So the disciples all hoped, every one of them had this little bit of thing in their heart that we call hope. To some degree or another, they had that someday he would accept their challenge because he was getting old. At 80, and now he would be easier to defeat. And there was one in particular who was very insistent. He was very powerful and he was very clever. He was not the master of the sword. That is, he didn't hold a sword with empty hands. He was skilled in the art. He was a good warrior. He was a good swordsman, but he was not yet this pillar of energy. This inner turnaround, this turnabout in him hadn't happened yet. But he would go to the master again and again and again, saying, "Now the time has come. You're getting old. We must know who the next master will be. Soon you're going to be too old to challenge. So I challenge you now." And the master laughed. And then he began to avoid him. So this disciple thought, well, he's weak. He's afraid of me. So he's trying to evade the challenge. So one night he went to his room and he insisted and insisted and insisted and was getting angry. "You must let me show you what I have learned from you." Finally, this old master says, "Well, if you insist, but your very insistence shows that you're not ready. There's too much excitement in you. Your ego is raising its bulk, But if you insist, okay. One thing. First, you go to this monastery, I don't know the name of it, which was not too far away, and there you will find a monk who was my disciple. 10 years ago, he was my disciple. And he became so efficient that he finally threw away the sword and became a monk. He was my rightful successor. He never challenged me. And he's the only one who could have. You go to him now and challenge him. If you can defeat him, then you come to me. If you don't defeat him, then just drop the whole thing. So this disciple immediately started out on the road and went to this monastery, and he found the monk and he challenged him. He couldn't believe that this monk was a sword master, a warrior monk, a samurai, He was too thin. He was too lean. Actually, he was somewhat emaciated, And this monk laughed at the disciple. And that made the disciple angry. And they were sitting there, facing each other. And this disciple, in his anger now, yells out, "Stand up! Here's a sword I brought for you. I know monks don't have swords, but here's the one I brought for you. You come out in the garden. We fight." And the monk wasn't at all disturbed. And he said to him, "You're not a warrior. You're just a little child. Why ask for death unnecessarily?" And this made the disciple even angrier. But anyway, they both went outside into the garden. And again, they were sitting face to face, social position. And the monk said to him, "Thanks for the sword, but I don't need it. I don't need a sword. I am not going to attack you. I am only going to give you the opportunity to attack me, which will break your sword. You're a child, and people will laugh at me if I take a sword against you." And this was just too much, altogether just too much. And the disciple jumped up on his feet and was surprised to see he was still facing the monk. Evidently, he had also stood up, without the disciple seeing it, He'd been sitting, facing each other. He stands up, and he's facing the monk, And this monk is just standing there now. And he looks at the disciple, and then he closes his eyes, and he begins to sway a little bit, from side to side, a little bit, standing there. And this disciple suddenly saw that the monk had disappeared. In front of him, what he was facing now was just like a pillar of energy. There was no face. It was just of this pillar that was slightly swaying. Now, this disciple, the fear crept into his heart. I mean, what is this thing? And he began to retreat. And of course, the pillar came along with him. And it kept right on with this way. So this disciple threw away the sword and he screamed at the top of his lungs, "Somebody save me!" And abruptly, there was the monk again. Mhm. He sat down and his face reappeared. And very quietly, he said to this disciple, "I told you before, even your master is no match for me. Go tell him." So perspiring from running and trembling out of this fear still, very nervous, this disciple went back to his master. And he says, "How grateful I am for you, for your compassion to me. I am no match for you. Even that monk destroyed me. But one thing he said I couldn't tolerate, and it bothers me, and it made me angry. He said, even your master is no match for me." And so this master, he laughs and he says, "So that rascal played that trick on you too. Huh? You got angry." Then he could see through you, because anger is like a hole in the being. And that's his basic trick. If you are angry, you cannot have empty hands. And this master says, whenever I send anyone to him, he talks against me. And of course, the disciple is angry. And when they are angry, they have all these holes. And when you have holes, you can't really fight. When you're angry, you have all these leakages. Stuff is leaking out. When you desire, you have holes. When you're jealous, you're not a pillar of energy. And look at your mind, leaking away with all these petty things. Leaking away. You don't hold the mind. You don't hold a focus. You don't hold a meditation. You leak yourself away. So about this, of course, the teaching presents desirelessness. When you are desireless, the energy doesn't move out and leak away. It moves within and it compacts. And then it's a field of energy without any leakage. So it is called a pillar of energy, a pillar of strength. It's a pillar of light. And it's, in the Bible, I think they call it a pillar of the temple. And in all of this, you're not thinking of any victory. If you think of a victory, already there is leakage. You have to have total acceptance, the acceptance of the totality. If you do not accept totality, desire rises. You got to put something in its place. You can't leave it empty, can you? Yeah. And the thing is, too, we think of ourselves as individual. We're all alone, standing out individually. This appearance thinks, I am. I think I am. I think I am. I hope I am. I think I am, huh? Now, there are times in this I amness, I think I amness, that the world seems inimical. It's kind of a place to be frightened of. It doesn't seem so friendly out there, somehow. And we are, in a way, particularly in this country, I must conquer that which is not friendly. Because if I don't conquer, I have to run. I have to conquer. Are you conquering? What are you conquering inside of you? Are you conquering greed? Are you conquering desire? Difficult. Nature isn't against you. You don't always need to be numero uno. In fact, better if you never are numero uno. Huh? In the Eastern traditions, with Lao Tzu, Chuang Tzu, and the Buddha, and Jesus, and they say, using Jesus' words a little bit, those who are last will be first. Lao Tzu said it very beautifully. Huh? Those who are last will be first and will be poor in spirit. Well, now, who is poor in spirit? One who is not thinking I am. One who is not me. One who has no claim. One who has no possessions. And possessions. I love. I hate. I am greedy. I am not greedy. I am not selfish. I am not this and I'm not that. And at the same time, I am all these things. These are possessions. Only, of course, they own you instead of you owning them. One who has no possessions. One who has no ego self. See, there is an absence of the desiring ego self. And that's poor in spirit. One stands poor in spirit. To truly understand that one little phrase, blessed are those who are poor in spirit, for they shall inherit the kingdom, or something like that. Poor in spirit. To really understand that, and by understanding, of course, I mean the experience. The experience of being poor in spirit. No small thing to come by. As we sit with ourselves, and of course, all the sitting is sort of geared toward reaching that place. Sitting and looking at ourselves, we see that in nature and in ourselves, there are no locks that we have to break open. There's no need to grab anything. Fearful is going to get away from you. As soon as you accept, the secrets are given. So in that sense, conquering is rather absurd. The minute that you transcend your possessions, they are not. Of course, you come back to them, but in the transcendence, they are not. So can you call that conquering? Of course, in the Greek era, they did, because they had this state called Hephren, the conqueror, the essence of what we would call prajna, of wisdom. Into this state, the secrets are given. You know who you are, and you know where you came from, and you know where you're going. And of course, there is this state where there is an I that is not an I think I am. That is a person. It is not a person. It's not the ego. It's an egoless I. And this I is quite alone. And it is the flight of this alone to thee alone that Plotinus has reference to. It must be alone. You cannot possibly take your trappings in with you. But we try. Over and over we try. We're lonesome without them. What am I going to do without this? Poor little me. Yeah. And we try, of course, to be beautiful. We try to beautify the ego. Why, the ego likes this, and that makes it appear much better. And the ego likes that, and so, of course, it's very cultured, And it likes classical music and it doesn't like jazz. So, of course, it's beautiful. I'm one of the beautiful people. Yeah. Somehow we have a vague memory of beauty, of the whole. Somehow we have this vague memory of the silence of the womb. And deep down, we know the serenity of the totality. Yeah. In the scriptures, it says, ye are gods. And here you are. Not you, but everybody. Ye are gods, very busy painting on faces and deceiving ourselves. Isn't that too bad? Yeah. It's like this woman that was walking on the seashore one day, and the tide had swept in this bottle lying there on the shore. So she was very curious, and she picked it up and she opened it, and here's this genie appeared. And like all true genies, of course, it said, you have broken open my prison, and you have set me free, and now you can ask. I will grant you your fondest desire. Now, genies are not found every day in the week. They are found rarely, and then, of course, only in stories. But anyway, this woman didn't even stop to think, what her answer was going to be. Not for a single moment. She blurted right out, I want to be a beautiful person. I want to be one of the beautiful people. I want to have eyes like Elizabeth Taylor, and I want to have hair like Brigitte Bardot, and I want to have a body like Sophia Loren. And the genie looked at her and said, honey, please, would you put me back in the bottle? Well, that's, I wonder if suddenly you came across a genie, what would you ask? Make me beautiful? We have learned so many things, really. And we think, what we've learned out of the scripture, no matter what scripture it is, whether it's the Christian Bible or whether it's the Vedas or whatever, Quran, the learning of scripture, and you sort of set it on one side, and this is holy because it comes from scripture. Yeah. You keep on doing that, and it's like a heavy boat in the head. You can drown with that kind of a boat. You can't cross the river. This flooding river is that kind of a boat that's heavy in your head. You can't get to the other shore with this burden. This shore, we call ignorance, and the other shore we call wisdom and liberation. And how can you be liberated if you're carting around this boat? This shore is the many, that shore is one. And if there's only this one, and it is itself, then we jolly well better set about unlearning some of this trapping that we're carrying around. When you come to sit, you can set it aside for a few minutes. Yeah. You set aside the thoughts, and you set aside the analysis, and you set aside the conflicts. You stop being the warrior. Yeah. When we do not know, we are innocent again. I mean, really, you just can't sit there and say, I don't know. That's not enough. It is really not know. In that not knowing, that state of not knowing, there occurs the most beautiful phenomenon. There is a silence. And in that silence of our not knowing, we meet face to face the wisdom of the soul. I say it often. Lots of other people say it too. Whatever I say is not new, Life is a riddle. Everywhere we go and every place we turn to, we seem to need some answers. We are very not knowing. Everywhere there is mystery. In not knowing, one wonders. One wonders. And this not knowing wonder is a religious quality that children also have. Yeah. Someone who knows, scholars, you got it all together in the head. And there's very little wonder left. They got the answers. What's there to wonder about? And we can say to them, well, what then about the mystery of a butterfly? What then the mystery of a seed sprouting? With all the marvels of science, seed sprouting is still a mystery. And that's what you're supposed to do, sprout. There's a seed in there. Sprouts. See? A child is born. This is a mystery. You're here. You're present. You can listen. Whether you do or not is something else. You can listen. You can think. You can touch. You can love. Such mystery. You didn't invent any of those gifts. And you are here in this world, in existence, for no reason at all. This existence, this just simple breathing in, breathing out. Oh, the Karate Kid. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. In existence, you breathe in, you breathe out. This moment, breathe in, breathe out. You listen. Breathe in, breathe out. You listen. Breathe in, breathe out. You listen to me. Breathe in, breathe out. You listen to the birds. Breathe in, breathe out. You listen to the breeze in the tree. You're hearing all of that at the same time. You being selective will pick out what you want to hear, but all of what is in existence, all of these appearances, you are hearing, breathing in, breathing out. You're alive. And you're alive with a not knowing. With this not knowing, breathing in, breathing out, enter this very livingness. This not knowing sometimes is called empty hands. Yeah. And so it was Fudaishi that said, empty-handed I go, and behold, the spade is in my hands. I walk on foot, and yet on the back of an ox I am riding. And when I pass over the bridge, lo, the water floweth not, but the bridge doth flow. Yeah. Chuang Tzu says his nature sinks to its roots in the one. His vitality, his power hide in the Tao. We carry our heads very high, Pride. What about those roots by which you have got ahead in the first place? Everything has roots. Trees, plants, you and me. We see the roots of the trees and the plants, but we do not see our own roots. But you cannot be in existence without them. What about this source, this root by which you live? Empty-handed, you return. Okay? And now, may the power and the peace that passeth all understanding hold us and keep us in the love of the Christed consciousness while we are seemingly separate one from another. And I thank you very much.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.